We want to say welcome back to the Heights podcast. At Heights, our mission is to love and to lead all people to a new life with Christ. And we use this podcast to help you take your next step of faith as we talk about topics that pertain to faith, culture, and the church. My name is Matt. I'm one of the pastors here at Heights, and I'm joined again this week by our lead pastor, Lee Peoples. So Lee, thanks for coming back.
No problem. Good to be back.
It's good to have you. So we have been, I didn't do this on purpose because I'm never this organized, but we've actually been going through several pods that talk about teaching the Bible in kind of some unique circumstances. And so Pastor Jonathan and I talked about how he chooses what he teaches to the student ministry. We talked about teaching the Old Testament because I was teaching an Old Testament equip group this fall. Then we had a couple of episodes where I had a chance to sit down with my brother who teaches Bible as literature on a college campus. Yeah. And so it's just been kind of interesting to explore some of those different ways that you can teach the Bible to people that's besides like a Sunday morning. Yeah. And so I wanted to sit down with you today and talk about a very unique opportunity that you have had over these past several weeks. And so why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what you've been up to?
Yeah. So several months ago, just in time of prayer, praying, Lord, how can I expand out my ministry and reach and just helping people? And so got an email from Heart of Texas College Foundation Ministry, which is a Bible college in the Darrington Unit in Rocheron in a maximum security prison. And they said, you're a local pastor, you have the degree qualifications we need, and we're always looking for people to come in and help teach a class or two for us. Would you be interested? So I was like, well, Lord, that was an interesting answer to that prayer. It wasn't on my radar, I wasn't kind of saying, hey, let's go into prison and teach, and I'd never really I'd kind of heard of the program before, I think in passing at a conference or a meeting, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. So I went and met with them, and what they essentially do is the college has a partnership with the Department of Justice of Texas. And so these are men that enroll in the Bible college, and it's a 4-year field minister degree that they get. And they'll do the Greek and Hebrew and Old Testament, New Testament, preaching, systematic theology, a lot of the classes we took on a college level. And then at the end of 4 years, if they graduate from the program, the Department of Justice will kind of pair up the guys, and then they'll send them back out to prisons around the state, and they'll become field ministers within those prisons. So they'll start Bible studies, they'll start churches, they'll kind of be, chaplains to other prisoners. And what really attracted me to that was it would be me as a pastor coming in, equipping them to do more peer-to-peer ministry. I really, and I'm going to say it this way, but I don't mean it mean. I wasn't real interested in me coming in ministering to other prisoners. I was more interested
like as a chaplain,
a chaplain. I was more interested in how can I equip people to minister in their local context, because the world there is different than the world we're sitting in out here. Right. It's kind of a different language. It's a different system of operation. It's a different lifestyle. And so as someone who would come in from the outside doing Bible studies with whomever, there's nothing wrong with that. I can only go so far. But if I can equip those who are in daily life with these men, with the gospel, they can go further, And so when they kind of explained the program to me, and I got a chance to meet some of the field ministers there in the Rocheron unit, at the Darrington unit, and just listen to their stories of what they're doing, I'm like, man, sign me up. This is awesome. But would not have guessed at the beginning of 2024 or 2023 when I'm praying that prayer that this is going to happen. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So about once a week for the last 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, it was a 6-week course that it was going to be in September to October because they do 2-month terms. And so they essentially don't have classes in December or July, and those are kind of the administration months for the college. So I started in September. It's going to be a 6-week term. And then the prison went on lockdown after week 2.
Oh, wow.
For about 3 weeks. And actually all the prisons around the state of Texas went on lockdown. Oh. And so then that delayed me coming in, obviously. And then so that 6-week term expanded out, but we just finished it. And I think, what was interesting was talking to some of the guys in my class about lockdown is essentially when the prison's in lockdown, they're not getting out of their cells. Maybe they're getting out of their cells to shower, but then they're in their cells for the rest of the day for weeks, because maybe that prison had a murder, or they're sweeping for drugs or contraband or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's sharing a cell with someone with basically you get 2 bunks, a little desk, and a toilet in your cell. And, for our listeners, if you just kind of put your hands out, you're touching the walls.
Wow.
And you're in there with someone for 24 hours a day for a couple of weeks, and you're only getting out maybe enough to go shower. They eat in there. Oh, wow. It's not going to the cafeteria. It's none of that, So when they go on lockdown, it's pretty intense on them, and so we think about all the space we get in our homes, but you put in that context is you're in that kind of confined area for a long time.
So how long would it typically take you to go through security when you would go? Because you'd go in, it was like 6 hours a day.
Yeah,
when you would go.
Yeah, I would get there about 7:30 in there. Class kind of started between 8 and 8:30. Mm-hmm. Understand, like if you've ever been in the hospitals have their own time. Yeah. Prison has their own time. Mm-hmm. And so we'd start about 8:30. When they would call for chow time, which they could call for chow at 11 or they could call for chow at 1 o'clock. It varied every time. They get about an hour and a half lunch break before we get out. They'll do a count, if you will, once or twice. So anyway, I'm there about 7 till about 3:30 is when I would leave. Mm-hmm. So I laugh when you say, well, like, how long does it take to get through everything? That all depends on the guards, quite honestly. Yeah. Because the college is on the back part of the prison. Mm-hmm. And so, you obviously go through the metal detectors, you enter into the prison. So you're in with general population and everything. And then it's the way that unit is set up is there's pods that you clear through. So it's a long straight hallway, and off to the sides are all the cells. And so each little pod has a gate you have to clear. And so you're walking through the system of gates. And so, everybody has their own lines you're supposed to stay in. So don't wander off the yellow brick road, kind of yellow path on the concrete. Mm-hmm. And, so the guests are we're up the middle. The guys are off to the side in kind of their designated areas. And so, you kind of get up to the gate, and you might have 20, 30 prisoners on your right and your left. You're standing there in the middle, and you're waiting for the next guard to walk up and unlock, and you all walk through and you close it, and, you keep going there. And then when you get outside, the prison or the college has its own building. It was a building that they purchased from the prison that was abandoned. They did about a $3 million renovation to it.
Oh, wow.
So it's the only spot that has air conditioning.
Nice.
The prison doesn't have AC or heat in it. They have like big fans.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, you can't.
I can't even imagine.
And it has a nice computer lab, about 90 computers in the computer lab that the guys can type papers. They have very limited internet, but they do have an ability to get on the internet, do some research. There's about four classrooms. There's a couple of classrooms upstairs. There's a big library of about 500-600 books, and all of that's privately donated.
Wow.
It's all privately fundraised and donated, and it's just a really amazing area. So long point of that, I don't know, it could take 10 minutes to get through everything. It could take half an hour. You're in there and you're on their time.
Yeah. Sometimes I would make jokes about doing prison ministry from the inside.
Right.
But like I can't even imagine, like when you go through that gate and they close it behind you, like did you ever have like fear or anxiety or claustrophobia when you were dealing with any of that?
It's a little disorienting. I told Sandra, walking through the prison itself to get to outside, because there's a lot of noise. It's a lot of people yelling kind of across the hallway, back and forth. There's a lot of movement. There may be guards talking and people talking all over. So I told her, I was like, it's disorienting the first couple of times to kind of move through it, because it's just constant noise, like a level of a buzzing all around you.
Totally.
But then when you got into the college and the room, no, I just kind of very comfortable. I had 40 students, in my class, and just kind of felt at ease there. I think there was one day I told her I didn't feel particularly well, that day. Just I wasn't sick, but just how you get to I want to get outside and get some air. And I couldn't get outside and get some air.
Right.
And that was the only time, I think, in about the 7 weeks I went, where I felt like trapped. Like I can't get out of here without the help of someone else. Like I can't just go stroll to my car. Like I've got to go all the way back through those system of gates and all that. So that day really was the only time where I was like, oh wow, I'm really in here, because once you're around the guys in the classroom, it's their way of life that you're coming into. It's their world, and you just kind of learn to adapt in their world, and where they're comfortable, you're comfortable type thing. You just kind of fit into the room with them. So, yeah.
They call you Dr. Peoples, or they call you pastor. What they call
you?
Well,
they call doctor. I don't ever like to use the title, but because it's a college and it's a little more formal, I was told they either need to call you professor or doctor. So I was like, yeah. So yeah. So they Dr. Peoples. So yeah.
Now you wrote a blog post about your experience doing this, and one of the things that you mentioned in the blog post is that not all of the students were believers.
Right.
So what was that like teaching theology to some students that weren't necessarily believers?
Yeah. So I had essentially, it's an Engaging Theology was the book we used as a basic Christian doctrine class, was the one I taught. And because the college has a partnership with the Department of Justice of Texas, they're not able to deny someone entrance into the program based on race or religion, you know. So I had a Muslim there, had a Jehovah's Witness guy who was a Mormon. And I didn't like straight up ask, hey, are you Christian, not Christian, but you could kind of tell by questions you would get or conversations like, okay, man, you probably aren't saved, or if you are, I had some guys who was like, where's Matthew in the Bible? And then I had other guys in there who could sit and have a 20-minute conversation about the Council of Nicaea.
Oh, wow.
And so you really had among the 40 this, like, we're super read up on this, and we know a lot of these things, to a Mormon and a Jehovah's Witness. And so it was fascinating to kind of lead the discussions a lot of times. Because I would let them as a class kind of interact and help to teach each other. And when we would throw out a question on the Trinity, like, all right, boys, start talking, And 20 minutes later, I'm trying to wrap that back up and infuse, if we got way off the track. No. But I think one of the things I try to do with them often is, if they're saying, well, in the Bible, blah, 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 blah. Okay, where? Like, show me. What are you talking about? Where? So I think over 6 weeks they were catching on to, I can't just tell Dr. Peoples like in the Bible.
It's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible, because what I was trying to teach them and model for them was, no, if we're going to share this with people, we have to know where it is, because the text is our authority, not our experience. So show me in the text, I will say probably our most heated, passionate debate was over one day, did God create evil? Because we were doing the problem of good and evil. for about 3 hours one afternoon, and that was fun. And I mean, it got heated in the room. Did God create evil or not? You know? And you know, and I honestly, I lost a little bit of patience, and I will not confirm nor deny. I had to slam my fist down on the desk once or twice to get their attention and and call them back to order and tell them what the Bible said. And so I got home, and Sandra's like, "How'd it go?" It's like, it went great. I just, you know, I lost my cool with 40 violent criminals today in a room locked up, and we ended up laughing at the end of the day, and it was great. You know, and so I think the discussions out of that were fascinating a lot of times, having that many different perspectives in the room, and just really neat to see some of the guys who were believers that were further along in their faith kind of chime in. No, hey, no, man, the Bible says this or this. And a lot of the discussions that happen during break time or during transition time, you know, they're just chatting about it, you know, the whole time. So it was neat to see a level of passion and hunger in Christians I haven't seen in a long time.
Wow.
You know, I mean, these guys just were like sponges.
That's amazing.
And it was funny because one day we talked about how the Bible is formed, you know, what we call our canon. And you know, we were comparing like the Catholic Bible has the Apocrypha in certain books, and you know, and the Protestant Bible, and we were kind of just walking through the history of that, how it came together. So on the reading quiz, I had a question: true or false? The Catholic Bible has the Apocrypha in it. Well, you know, that the answer is true. Well, one guy goes, well, I circle false. And I was like, well, but what I wrote was a true statement. He's like, well, but there's 22 Apocrypha books in the Apocrypha books. Well, the Catholic Bible only has 7 of the 22. Oh, gotcha. So I marked false because there's only 7 of the 22 in there. And I was like, well, I didn't know there was 22. I thought, but I was writing a gimme question, and it ended up in a 10-minute conversation. And the guy grew up Catholic, and he was like, no, actually, he's right. There's 22, because he said, I grew up Catholic. I didn't know how many were in. So after we did that lesson, we went to the library, and we read a couple of books on the Apocrypha.
Did some research.
And we did some research, and he's right. And I'm like, all right, well, everybody gets number 4 right today. So, I mean, just kind of that level of, you know, wanting to learn and learn and learn. And I want to push back on something that I think our listeners are probably thinking right here, because I've shared that story a little bit with folks who've asked me, you know, how were they, what it, you know, and some people are saying, you know, well, like, they have a lot of time on their hands. Of course they can read. What else do they have to do?
That's funny. That's exactly what I was just thinking.
You know,
I was like, well, they're going to be great students.
Right. But the thing is, yes, they have time on their hands, but they have a lot of time to waste.
That's true.
And so when you talk to the guys, a lot of them will say in their story they've shared with me, when I came into the prison system before I became a Christian, I was just wasting my life away. Mm-hmm. But now I've come to Christ, I've found purpose in my life, and this has given me purpose. Mm-hmm. And so their desire to learn and research and do this isn't coming out of, well, I don't have anything better to do today. Mm-hmm. Their drive is a purpose, you know, because as Christians, they could hang out in their cell. I mean, go play, you know, I mean, like they can waste time as a Christian, but that drive that I saw in them was like, no, we know what we're doing. We have this passion and purpose in our life, and we want to do it really well. And I was just floored by that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with the program because before Heart of Texas took it over, there was a time where that program was being run out of Southwestern Seminary. Yep. And so when I was in seminary here in Houston, several of my professors taught at the Houston campus and then also taught at the Darrington Extension. Yep. And so I know that in order to qualify for this program, you have to have a really long sentence in front of you.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to be a lifer, but we're talking decades.
Yeah, it's the minimum of 20 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
So it's 20 years and above.
So this is a person who has faith in Christ, and they're making a decision. That, you know, and this is some. I mean, I could imagine for somebody that is looking at that kind of a sentence, saying, "Look, I'm just gonna I'm just going to waste the time.
I'm just going to, I'm going to.
But this is a person who's saying, no, like God's got me here for a reason.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to spend my life teaching Bible studies and reaching other people for Christ and doing discipleship. I mean, it's just so exciting. When you think about that.
And it's exciting and heartbreaking in some ways, talking with some of the guys. Of course, I never ask, what'd you do? You don't ask that question. But some of them would share their story. And, one of the gentlemen I had, early 40s, he's been in the system for 10 years. And, he shared with me one day, he said, 5 years into the system, I wasn't a believer. Last 5 years, I've become a Christian. And again, I've got purpose and something to live for. I'm in this program. I'm excited. And he just looked at me and he said, I'm going to die in prison. He's like, there is no chance of me getting out of prison. He said, I will die in a prison one day. He said, but now I'm more alive than I ever have been because I know what I'm here for. And I mean, that's just, whew. I mean, that's powerful, to hear those guys who, on the outside obviously did some things very bad. One of the gentlemen, he was sharing a story one day and he just said it was drugs, it was alcohol. He had bad night drunk, gun just charged, accidentally killed his friend. He said, I'm never getting out. And he said, and when I came into the system, I was mad and upset with God that I was in prison, that God put me here. He said, then I came to believe in Christ and Christian. And he was like, now I know that saved my life.
Wow.
Because if I was on the outside, I would be dead because of the life I was living with drugs and alcohol and all that I was consuming and doing. So he said, I know I'm never getting out, but I have life here. And I have purpose now every day I wake up to go help other guys come to know Christ. And, when you hear those stories, like you think my mind just races to Philippians 1. And it's Paul in, the Roman prison, chained up to the palace guard, and he's sharing the gospel with all the guards. And Philippians 1 says the gospel's going out throughout the prison, and we kind of laughed about that one day that, these guys are joining Paul in his prison ministries because Paul was always locked up in the Bible.
That's right. Did they have chapel while you were there? Did you ever get to be there for chapel?
Well, we would do like a little assembly most mornings together. There's about 200, close to 200 guys in the whole college. I had the freshmen, and so we get together for a little chapel announcements. Our president, if he was there, kind of give them some here's things happening. But it was powerful because it was just simple. It was a guy with an acoustic guitar, one of the guys, and we'd sing an old hymn or two. On the TV, they had TVs, so we could put up the PowerPoint. And one day we did the old slide projector thing, or the old transparency thing, moving that, and just an old hymn or two. And I mean, I know this with music. I love being at a pastor's conference or something where it's just all men. Nothing against the ladies singing, but when you get a room full of guys singing at their top of their lungs, it's just something different. And to hear them singing about freedom, being free in Christ, being forgiven at the top of their lungs, standing in a prison, hearing them sing about freedom, just that was so moving to me every time we got to do that and sing with them. So, did you ever wonder if like the earthquake was going to happen? That's right. Well, it was neat because I shared that story with my guys at the last class because we were kind of talking about what we liked about class and stuff, and I said this is what I really enjoyed being with you guys about. And so when we were finishing up and I was about to pray for the last time, one of the guys was like, "Well, let's sing," and he said, that. He pointed, he was like, he'll lead us. And I was like, all right, well, let's sing. I was like, what do we want to sing? And they're like, how about, how great is our God? I was like, let's do it. And so there, in our little classroom, the 40 of us, a cappella, we rocked out How Great Is Our God. And I mean, it was powerful, just a great thing just to hear them sing and that passion and joy in that. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So did you see or experience anything in this, throughout these weeks that just really surprised you? Was there anything that just kind of made you go, oh wow, I didn't expect that? Um, I think the level of camaraderie among the guys was surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got there a little earlier one day because I got through the gates faster, and so I was getting ready to go in my room, and I would, kind of walk, and they had glass doors, glass windows, where you could see in, and I walked up, and I just kind of stopped for a second. I was talking to one of the TAs, and they were already doing like prayer requests with themselves, and a couple of them would get up and like give a testimony of some things that had happened. One of the guys had just reunited with his daughter from I think about 15 years, and he had just found out he had 3 grandkids that he'd never met, never heard of, because the relationship was destroyed or really broken between him and his daughter. But in the last month they had made up, and she had come visit and brought him pictures, and so and that gentleman's about 65 years old, and I mean he was just standing up in front of class, and I mean just beaming ear to ear and giving the testimony, and the guys were so excited, and just so that level of kind of camaraderie was pretty good, and I think of a surprise. And I came in one day, and they were all already in there, and I could tell something was a little off, and so I was just like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? We're a little quieter today than we normally are. And one guy was like, we just need some prayer. There's some division among us in the room. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And, and so we opened up Acts 4:32-36 and talked about being unified as brothers in Christ, and kind of did a little quick devotion there and had time of prayer. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what details, quite honestly. And just, we walked through that and talked about the importance of being unified as Christians as we minister out to people. And then the rest of the day was great. Then they were kind of back to themselves, And I think the other thing that surprised me was the level of persecution some of them are under.
Oh wow!
They have to wear a name badge that identifies them as being in the college or field ministers. And talking with a few of them, just said, the level of the way we are treated sometimes by the guards or by other prisoners is very, very nasty, because we are identifying ourselves as Christians. We are putting ourselves out there. And one gentleman was like, my cellie, that's what they call their cellmate, their cellie. He's like, he just treats me horribly, because he knows I'm in this college. And some of it is the persecution of them trying to get those guys to fail, or trying to get them to blow it or get in a fight or, do something wrong. And some of it's that kind of egging on, and some of it's just evil against them, So the level of persecution I think they were under was something that opened my eyes one day and got a chance to really talk to a few of them about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
For those of us that are part of the local church, are there any things that we can do to encourage or support this program or programs like it that are happening in prisons?
Yeah. I know there's probably some financial ways, but I've not looked at that, quite honestly, as a local church. I think prayer is the biggest thing, and I don't want to say that cliche,
right?
But it really is. Like I told the guys several times, I said, guys, there's not a Sunday that I have come to church and left church where somebody has not asked me about you guys. I was like, our church is excited that I'm here doing this. And I did over the last several Sundays. People are like, how's it going? How are the guys? What's going on? Where do and then like our people are generously curious about that. And so telling them those stories, I mean, they were so excited about that, and I told them I said, I've had several people like, hey, I'm praying for them. And so to be able to communicate that to that, that means a lot to them when people are praying for them and they know they're being prayed for, because they feel like somebody cares about me that I don't even know, type thing. And so I think that's the big thing right now. And I don't want to treat that as a cliche answer by any stretch. It really makes an impact on them, to be able to say, hey, I got people praying for you, and their eyes just light up. And, one day they clapped, when I said, or, when some people are praying for you guys, and they're like, wow, all right, tell them thank you, and stuff. So
one of the habits I tried to get in when I was in seminary was just anytime I'm on that, kind of that southern part of 288.
Yeah.
And I would, if you're kind of cruising down by that kind of Rocheron area,
Right.
or you see the turnoff for Darrington.
Yep.
Anytime I would see that Darrington sign, that just a reminder for those, especially for those of us that live kind of on the south side of Houston, kind of
Right.
Brazoria County, just remember there's a, just right across the freeway,
Yeah.
there's a place, there's a Bible college that's
Yep.
inside a maximum security prison, where 200, 200 men are being trained to be, pastors and discipleship leaders and field ministers, and praise God for that.
Yeah, it's an amazing program. It really is. It's opened my eyes in a lot of ways, and it's a lot of fun. Hope to get to do it again. They're probably January is the next round of classes, and so they want me to come back and teach again. But it'll kind of be on what they can offer or what they're offering, what I can teach. Because I was like, I'm not your Greek and Hebrew guy. I'm your down to earth pastoral ministry guy, and then what I can do just kind of my schedule.
Sure.
I was doing it on Fridays, which is typically my off day, and so there's going to be some things that need to line up. But I'm excited about going back again and seeing my guys. And that's what I would tell them. I was like, y'all are my guys. And they're like, when are you coming back? When are you coming? I was like, y'all just think I'm an easy A. That's why you like me.
I love it. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story with us.
No problem. Appreciate it.
And I also want to say thank you to our audience. Thanks for tuning in this week as we explored what it's like to teach the Bible and teach theology inside a maximum security prison. We would invite you to come on out, especially if you live in the Houston area. We worship every Sunday morning at 10:30. We've got life groups for all ages at 9 a.m. And we would love to have you come meet with us in person. We also stream our services to Facebook and to YouTube. We encourage you to find us on social media, and you can learn more about Heights and how we desire to love and to lead all people to a new life with Christ by going to heightschurch.org. We'll see you next time.